How's it going, everyone? It's your host, Les Abbott. I just wanted to say that I probably jumped the gun a little bit on saying that Matt and I were going to be able to do a full episode. I know the anticipation has been building, and we do eventually want to get back to doing full length episodes, but scheduling is still an issue for the time being, but we'll all get straightened out. But also, we want to continue to give you content because that's what you, as the fans, deserve to have. So, without further ado, I do want to shout out a friend of me and my girlfriend's, Raina Stillwell, for hooking me up with this nice mic. I've been playing around with it a little bit the last couple days, and I think the sound quality is just awesome. So I want to thank her for that. But tell me in the comment section if you think the sound does sound better than in previous podcasts, or let's be honest, I know most of you all are just going to say that, look, we don't want to hear Les talk. We're here for Matt anyway, so we just want to see what crazy shit Les comes out of Les's mouth. So I understand. But without further ado, let's get into the topic of today's little snippet. So obviously the college basketball season is over, and as always, the tournament was exciting and it was a season to remember for many reasons. But I think what the absolute bombshell that was dropped on us here over the last week was the retiring of Jay Wright, who, I mean, granted, I didn't realize that he was 60 years old, the dude holds it pretty well. Guy could have passed for like late 40s, early 50s if we're being honest, but I mean, also has like the flyest suits in the game. Let's not get that twisted at all. But when he retired from college basketball, I think that shocked everyone. Shocked me, and clearly shocked other members of the media. But a couple things about that I'm hearing that I want to address. And one is a comment made by former Blue Devil guard Jay Williams and current basketball analyst. He said that the game of basketball that he knows and loves is coming to an end. And I kind of get where he's coming with that. We're in the one and done era. We're in the NIL era. So players aren't sticking around for 4 years, and they're actually being able to receive compensation for their name and image. And now, like, the big name coaches are starting to all leave. You know, we had Krzyzewski's last season this year. We had Roy Williams retire before the season. Now Jay Wright, and then so on and so on. So the college basketball that he may know and love is coming to an end. However, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. My thing is, I don't believe that we are going to see I think the days of coaches being at a school for 30, 40 years are over. I just think us as a society, we want results, we want them now, and if we don't keep those same results, it's time to move on for bigger and better things. I think that's just the speed of the society nowadays, and that's playing a part in sports as well. Players aren't staying all 4 years. Obviously, we're in the one and done era. I feel if you're talented enough to go to pro, then go pro. I mean, if you want to stay, then stay. Obviously, it's a personal choice regardless. Also, the NIL, the whole NIL thing. Look, if you don't appreciate a player being able to compensate for their name and image, then I think you're a selfish human being, personally. Because the real crime was for years about how the NCAA was able to make millions of dollars and profit off of these kids. I say kids. I'm that much older. Okay, sorry. These players' name and image, and they legally weren't able to receive a dime. That is the real crime. Because if you take anyone in any other profession, that you can get sued over that. But in college athletes, there was an exception for whatever reason. But thanks, NCAA. But no, I actually appreciate the NIL. But obviously, I don't have an issue with it because at the end of the day, basketball is still basketball. The games are still going to be good. The tournament's still going to be crazy. And I don't see what the problem is. And I'm not one to say that I don't appreciate change. I find it interesting. You know, I'm 28 years old. I obviously don't remember Duke basketball prior to Coach K. I wasn't born. I'm not going to remember that. But I'm, in a way, as sad as I am to see him go and sad that we didn't send him out on top, I'm excited to see what the new era brings. So for me, change is not a bad thing. And I also want to say this is kind of hypocritical on Jay Williams' part because if you look at like most of his angles when it comes to college basketball, he's usually that new school approach. Like, take care of the players. Players should be able to get compensated. One and dones. I mean, that's just the route that players got to go to get drafted. And he's all about the new school approach of the players being able to take care of themselves. However, this take was very old head like. So to hear Jay Williams go from a new school approach to an old heads take was very shocking to me, and I think it's kind of hypocritical on his part. So, but to wrap up my point here, I think change is good, and I think it makes it intriguing going forward. Another take that you all know that I absolutely have to address is when Jay Williams retired. Obviously, he didn't get a farewell tour that Coach K did. Roy Williams, the same thing. They retired on the spot. And now Coach K's getting the criticism because obviously people were upset that all the big announcement and all the publicity that it got. Look, I'm just going to say one thing about that. If you're mad that your favorite team doesn't have a coach with his resume, just say that. Ignorance and jealousy is bliss, my friends. And also, here's the most important thing, and this does not come even from a Duke fan. I want you to think about how well Coach K's retirement tour set Duke up for the future. You look at how these recruits knew coming in that they were not going to be coached by Coach K and that Shire was going to be the guy. And yet he still reached out, yet the program, the university still reached out to these players, and these players were convinced 100% that they wanted to come to Duke. And now Duke has the #1 recruiting class over the next 2 years and 9 5-stars out of 11 commits, which is absolutely absurd. I don't think that's better than I think any recruiting ranking class during Coach K's era, which is wild to say. But I mean, in a way, that retirement tour set Duke up well for the future. Now let's go with North Carolina and after Roy Williams' retirement. They look in their first season under Hubert Davis. They went under a great run, made it to the championship game. So I know you're probably thinking like, "Oh, Les, what are you talking about?" Clearly, he set them up just fine. You know, they made it to the championship game. Well, if you saw the pieces that took place prior to the season, there's quite a reason to believe why North Carolina wasn't ranked coming into the preseason. There was a lot of moving pieces. We didn't know what to expect from this North Carolina team. And really, it was guys that did choose to come back that bought in, is essentially what it was. But there were a lot of moving pieces, and we didn't know what to expect. So I think it speaks more volumes of the job that Hubert Davis did and the commitment that the players that did return have than anything. Because North Carolina realistically had every reason to not do well this year. But they exceeded expectations, and I don't like them, but they had a great season, and especially how they ended it. And if the fact that majority of them are going to be coming back next year, I think they're going to be even scarier next year. And now let's go with Villanova. These recruits that Jay Wright has been bringing in, now they want to play for Wright. Now he's gone. So now it's almost like Villanova is going to be in a almost rebuild mode. And Kyle Neptune has his hands full now. I mean, they had an All-American recruit that was really growing on me, and Cam Whitmore. Now there's talk that he might not be going to Villanova. So now all of a sudden they're in rebuild mode. And what was a good program during the Wright era, we now do not know what to expect. At least with Duke, we know that good players are coming in. We know that they should be in good hands and that they are set up to succeed. Whether they do or whether they don't is yet to be determined, but they're set up for it. So whether you thought the retirement tour was annoying or what, it did set us up for the future. So there was a lot of good that came out of it. So you all can zip it. Oh, buddy. You all kill me, guys. But obviously, without further ado, I know the 2022-2023 season is a long ways away, and Matt is going to talk a lot about some of his expected top returners and transfers. And of course, as we get closer to the season, Matt and I are going to do our infamous annual college basketball preview that he and I love absolutely so much. But for the time being, I'm going to take this time to name my top 5 incoming freshmen, because you all know I love the recruiting trail and just love watching these guys play before they hit the college scene. And but I'm going to name my top 5 incoming freshmen. However, because I could almost make this entire list Duke or Texas related. I mean, we talk about Duke's recruiting class, as I just mentioned, 9 5-stars out of 11 commits over the next 2 years. I could throw Texas in there with Dylan Mitchell. Dylan Mitchell's making some serious noise in the in the NBA stock list. So he's a great player, best athlete in the class. But here are my top 5 freshmen that aren't going to Duke and Texas next year. So Number 5, I'm going to go ahead and get a Wildcat out of there and say Chris Livingston. And those who follow my social media pages know that I wasn't high on Livingston for a long time, but what I continue to see is his improvement. I like his build, I like his skill set, and I think could be a very good player next year for the Wildcats. And of course, he's going to a very good development program in Kentucky, so they're going to get probably more than likely the most out of him. And so I think he has to be mentioned in my top 5 non-Duke or Texas incoming freshmen. Number 4, we're going to have the carbon copy of Bradley Beal himself and Keontae George, who is going to Baylor. Guy can score at all 3 levels and has a physical body, and I think will be an absolute mismatch problem in the Big 12 next year. Number 3, we're going to go with Kellel Ware, the 7-footer going to Oregon, which I really can't tell much of a difference between how him and number 1 ranked recruit Derek Lively play. They're both long, athletic 7-footers that protect the rim and can jump out of the gym and can occasionally hit a spot-up 3-point shot, which, I mean, you almost got to do now or else you're ineffective. Number 2, we're going to go with Lou Will, the 6 god himself, 2.0, and Nick Smith, who is heading to Arkansas. The more and more I watch this guy play, the more and more I just realize this dude is an absolute bucket. And I think he's going to put the SEC on notice along with the rest of that Arkansas recruiting class coming in next year. And number 1, I'm going to go with a player that I've watched for years, a player that I've been high on for a long time, and amazingly enough, continues to impress me, and that's Amari Bailey going to UCLA. I think he could very well be the best incoming freshman. I currently have him 1A and 1B with Dariq Whitehead in my overall top 25 recruit list that you all see annually. Absolutely love his game. He's a very versatile combo guard, and I think the Bruins got a heck of a player coming in next year. So that wraps up the rest of what I'm going to say about college basketball. So I'm going to go a little bit and continue the basketball trend, but go into talk about the NBA playoffs. Now, obviously, the games are going on every day. So clearly, I say this from a standpoint of how things are at the point of when this podcast recorded. Things are obviously going to change by the time I press the upload button. So just hear me out, and this is how I'm going to give my reactions to how things are at the time of this recording. So without further ado, I'm going to take it to the first game of the first game I have listed here, which is the matchup between the Phoenix Suns and the New Orleans Pelicans. The Suns currently lead that series 2-1, and Game 4 is tomorrow on Sunday. So the big storyline coming out of this matchup right now isn't necessarily what is going on, but what just happened and who will not be able to play for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and that is the injury to Devin Booker. Look, that is a big loss. Devin Booker is a great scorer. However, the Suns are not in as much trouble as you may think. The Suns were not even a threat to even make the playoffs prior to Chris Paul getting there, and he is the engine that makes this team run. So as long as they have him, they can get guys to step up in Booker's absence until he is good to return. I think the other storyline, of course, I got to talk about a Duke player and the absolute emergence of Brandon Ingram. This is his first playoff series in his career, and he has not disappointed. The next matchup I'm going to go with is the Mavericks and the Utah Jazz. And the Mavericks, the fact that they have won 2 games already without Luka Doncic, and the fact that he is expected to play limited minutes today, just go ahead and hang the Jazz are done. Just go ahead and head home, get on the plane, start the off season, and I think it's time to blow up the Jazz duo between Donovan and Gobert. You either move on from one, or if not both of them, because clearly they are stuck in that Dante's Inferno of being good but not good enough. And also, I can't say enough about how Jalen Brunson is burst on the scene. This is a guy that I have been absolutely high on since high school, and I always thought he was going to be a very underrated player in the NBA. I thought backup point guard was going to be his aspiration, given his style of play. But he's really put his name on the map in this series, showing that he could be a legitimate starting point guard in the league, and could be a legitimate contributor at the starting point guard in the league. And he's filled in very well in Luka's absence. The next series, we have The Golden State Warriors and the Denver Nuggets, who the Warriors currently lead 3-0. And I know what everyone's thinking. The fact that the leading MVP candidate is currently in danger of being the first MVP candidate to be swept in the first round of the NBA playoffs. However, this comes to a surprise? Not at all to me, because the biggest thing we are seeing here is how unmatched the Nuggets are compared to the Warriors. You have Steph, Clay back, Draymond, that duo that's already been to several finals runs in their career. You have an emerging star in Jordan Poole, who is, I talked about Jalen Brunson bursting on the scene. Well, what the heck is Jordan Poole doing? I mean, there are people, I've literally seen crazy tweets on social media that seem to believe that Jordan Poole, Clay, and Steph are a more dangerous trio than Steph, Clay, and KD, which I think is absolutely crazy. I think you don't know basketball at all if you believe that, but no, Jordan Poole has absolutely bursted onto the scene. And the Warriors are looking scary to the point to where they might, in a wide open postseason, they might now be the favorites to win it all. But the big storyline is how the MVP expected winner is about to get swept in the first round. However, to me, this isn't a surprise, because Jokic's best case to win MVP, in my opinion, is the fact that he's without his second and third guy. He's without his Robin and his Nightwing to Jokic's Batman. So for that being said, he's going to be outmatched against a good team. So this is no surprise at all. And yeah, I expect the Warriors to complete the sweep and then head on to the next series. But I don't think that negates Jokic's MVP value, because this was his biggest argument for winning MVP, is how good the Nuggets did play without their second and third guys, thanks to Jokic. So that's what I have to say about that series. The next thing, I'm going to wrap up the last first round matchup in the Western Conference with the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves, who the Grizzlies currently lead 2-1 after a complete choke job by the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, would they go on they blew a 26-point lead? You absolutely can't have that happen. The Grizzlies are everything. I feel like I'm going to give the old Coach Green statement and say they are who they thought we were, and they let them off the hook, because that's exactly what happened. The Grizzlies were the second seed in the West for a reason, and the fact that they have a very above 500 record in Ja Morant's absence shows how good top to bottom they are. Not to mention Ja as a star in his own right. So the Grizzlies are who they thought they are. The Minnesota Timberwolves, were able to get game one because they were excited to be there. And they have a bright future. I absolutely love Anthony Edwards. A while back was able to see him play in person at a matchup against the Pacers, and the dude can do a lot of things that makes you say wow on the basketball court. But I think personally, it's time for them to move on from Karl Anthony Towns. I think this is the biggest takeaway from this series from the Timberwolves aspect, because as talented as Towns is, I think from a pure talent standpoint, he's probably the most talented center in the league. The problem is he's soft. You get physical with him, and he gets taken out of the game way too easily. And if he's going to be your star big man, you absolutely can't have that happen. He's worth too much money to be disappearing in these big moments. So trade him, get some value out of him, put some more pieces around Anthony Edwards, and build for the future. But I have the Grizzlies winning the series going on. So let's take it to the Eastern Conference, who I was so ready. You all know where I'm going to go with this. I was so ready to come in here and talk about how Miami went up 2-0, and they have Mr. Ice Trae himself absolutely shook. But of course, last night Trae was able to hit the game winner, and you all see my social media pages. He got every call. You couldn't even breathe on the guy without him going to the free throw line. It was ridiculous. That being said, it was still only a 1-point game, so I still have confidence that the Heat are going to pull this series out. But and obviously the big concern coming out of last night's game was the injury to Kyle Lowry. But of course, he makes the Wolverine statement that that his hamstring will be fine for Game 4. So I want to take his word for it. But for what we saw in the first two games, that I think is going to still be the trending theme of what's going to happen for the rest of the series. I knew that the Heat were going to be able to give Trae fits. Trey's a good player, and you know he's going to have his breakout moments at some points, but having a defensive guard like Lowry is already going to make life hard on Trey enough. But when you have as many guys in the starting lineup and even on the bench that play as good a defense, so that we can literally switch 1 through 5 on Trae Young, we knew that was going to make him, was going to give him fits. And Trae Young is a type of player who everything has to go through him or he's not effective. So if we can make life difficult on him, it's going to make the Hawks' life difficult. Because personally, I don't think Trae Young is the player that you all seem to make him out to be. He's too soft for me. If he's not playing well, then he takes himself out of the game. And if things aren't going his way, he likes to pout and cry about it, and I don't like that at all. But yeah, I mean, I knew the first couple games were literally apparent to what I was saying. And we were being able to switch 1 through 5. He shot a very poor percentage. Was able to was turning the ball over more than getting assists, and again, I have nothing else to say. I think a lot of the same is going to happen for the rest of the series. Whether the Hawks take another game or not is yet to be seen. But just being able to get inside Trey's head when he's not doing well just shows how soft he is as a superstar, and we need to stop. We need to absolutely stop overrating this guy. He's a very talented player, has a very similar skill set to Seth Curry. But here's the thing. Steph Curry is everything that Trae... It's not the main skill sets that we focus on that separate Steph Curry and Trae Young. We all see the handles, we see the passing ability, we see the shooting, the logo range, the smoothness in their game, the elusiveness, and it's easy to make the comparison. However, if we're going to compare Trae to Steph, we need to start recognizing that there's so many little things that Steph does that goes unnoticed that Trae is unwilling to do. Curry is willing to make that blindside steal. He's able to make the hockey assist. He's able to grab the rebound when he needs to. He's able to he sets screens for his teammates. And let's not even don't even get me started on how much better he is off the ball. Steph knows how to play his role in what moment to ultimately get a win. Trae is ineffective unless he has the ball in his hands. And that's just not the kind of star I want. So for the rest of the series, I expect the Heat to continue to switch 1 through 5 on him, make life difficult on him, or the Heat eventually move on to the second round. The next game in the Eastern Conference, we're going to talk about the Sixers and the Raptors, who the Sixers are currently up 3-0, and they are on the verge of sweeping the Toronto Raptors. And I'm going to go ahead and just call it what it is. Sixers move on. Joel Embiid is my MVP choice for everything he brings on both sides of the ball. And, of course, moments like that game-winning three-point shot he hit show why. Moving on, we're going to talk about the Bucks and the Bulls series, which, I'm going to be completely honest. Going into last night's game, given that Middleton sprained his MCL, I was worried because Middleton's the closer. He's the guy that Matt and I have previously done a video on about the whole Batman and Robin dynamic that the Bucks have, and how the infamous Kendrick Perkins take about how Middleton's Batman and Giannis is Robin, etc. that got a whole bunch of criticism every which way. But here's the thing: Middleton is the closer on the Bucks. He is the bucket getter late. The guy that the offense needs to run through in the fourth quarter. So when he went out with a sprained MCL, I thought this was going to be a lot more troublesome for the Bucks than it clearly looked last night, because they just dominated the Bulls from start to finish. And ironically enough, I got to shout out my Duke guy Grayson Allen for winning player of the game, leading the way in scoring on both sides of the ball. I mean, for both teams rather. And the Bucks just looked like the defending champs, even without Middleton, which I thought was impressive. So I ultimately do expect the Bucks to sneak by the Bulls because of the Bulls' lack of playoff experience from guys not named DeRozan. But I still think in the later rounds, depending on when Middleton can come back, is when they're going to start to run into issues. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about the Boston Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets. One of the most intriguing first round matchups from NBA fans. And here is what I have to say about that. Jason Tatum is a superstar, and here's why. You look at game 2. The first 3.5 quarters, his offense was absolutely garbage, and that's something JT's known for. However, he didn't hang his head like Trae Young would, or other guys that we think are superstars that really aren't. He picked up in other areas, played defense, had a very good block on Kevin Durant, crashed the boards, made the right passes, and then his offense absolutely came alive in the fourth quarter when they needed it most. That is the definition of a superstar, doing what needs to be done. Tatum and Brown, and also I'm going to take it a step farther. Tatum and Brown are everything that KD and Kyrie aren't. And here's what I meant by that. You all saw the tweet. I told you all to take it how you want, but here's officially what I meant by that. Tracy McGrady can say whatever he wants when he says that KD and Kyrie are the most skilled duo in NBA history. And he might be right. From a skill standpoint, there isn't much better. But here's the thing. Neither KD or Kyrie are great leaders. Kyrie tried to get out from under the wings of LeBron, and because he wanted to be the main guy, and it clearly showed that it was unsuccessful. And now he's teaming up with another superstar in KD. So clearly look how that panned out. Kevin Durant had to join a well-oiled machine in Golden State to finally win championships. He didn't have to be a leader on that team. Neither one play with the kind of grit you need to win championships. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum do. And that's why I think all this talk that we've had over the last several years of separating those two needs to stop. The Celtics had other areas of need that they needed to address, but that's the last thing they need to do is separate these two because they have something absolutely special in those two. That's all the time I have for today. As always, like and subscribe to Less is More Sports podcast channel on YouTube, and tell us what you liked, what you didn't like in the comment section below. But until next time, I'm out.